Recording in progress. Afternoon.
We are going to call the Rules and Appointment Committee meeting to order. Ms. Carrillo, if you will, please call the roll.
Malinowski.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
Mackey. We have a quorum.
The first order of business is the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Ms. Carrillo?
Malinowski. Barron.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
The next order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Ms. Carrillo, do we have any changes?
No, ma'am.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
Malinowski. Barron.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Our next order of business is interviews. We will conduct the interviews. We'll conduct the interviews in the next few moments, and we have to go into executive session to do so. I'll accept the motion to go into executive session.
Motion to go in executive session to conduct interviews for the Central Midlands Council of Governments vacancy.
Malinowski. Barron.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
executive session. I'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
Second?
Malinowski.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
We are back from executive session where we conducted interviews for the Central Midlands Council of Governments. We interviewed 5 applicants. At this time, we will move on to our next order of business, which is the notice or the notification of vacancies that is to be publicized November the 18th. According to this document, I think, November the 18th at 5 o'clock. You'll see all of the vacancies listed there. If you don't have any questions about the ones that are listed, I'll entertain a motion to send this to full council. Yes, sir.
Move to approve the advertising of all the vacancies listed under number 5, which includes A through Q.
Second it. Any discussion?
So, okay, I'm just making sure, I'm confirming that this includes any folks that we just recently appointed. So these numbers have been, I guess, updated. Is that?
So the numbers are active until an appointment is made. So if an interview took place, but the appointment hasn't been officially made, then the numbers stay the same.
Mr. Malinowski.
Madam Chair, letter I, the Internal Audit Committee. We still have never hired an internal auditor. So I don't think we should be, we've done this before. We advertise it, people apply, they get on here, they don't attend any meetings because we don't have an internal auditor and their term expires. It's a waste of the person's time. I think we need to emphasize the need for this position to be filled before we advertise for anybody for that committee. So I would recommend we strike that one from the list of vacancies to advertise.
So is that your substitute motion?
Substitute, I'm just amending my first
Okay,
motion.
amending it.
That we advertise all of them with the exception of I, the Internal Audit Committee positions.
Second it. Any further discussion?
I guess, noting with what Mr. Malinowski has brought to the table, I guess I would like that to somehow be further looked into as a discussion point because it is still listed in our committee. So I guess looking into what, by not having folks serve, what are the impacts of that? Do we need it? Do we not? Can that be fulfilled somewhere else, I guess, instead of not appointing?
The only way they would serve is when we have an internal auditor and be able to make recommendations and discussion with that person.
But is
So
it,
that's why we need to get the chair and this council to approve the hiring of
that's what I'm saying. So is it
advertise for an
even
internal auditor
Yeah.
position, right?
So at this point, I guess, is it even in the budget? I don't know if any of that exists, is what you're saying. Okay.
That one, does the internal auditor come under the council budget?
Oh, one of the,
Yeah, we've never used it, that's for sure. There's probably all kinds of money for it.
So what we'll do is if we can just make a note, Ms. Carrillo, to, so that we can follow up with the chair and administrator about the internal auditor in that position.
Madam Chair, if I may make a recommendation, you have to give a report tonight. Maybe in your report, you could add that. Then it's right there and
Absolutely.
We
That's a
can
good
just-
idea. Thank you so much, Ms.
Sure.
Rollins. That's a good idea. And I'd also like to recognize our colleague, Mr. Livingston has joined us. Thank you so much for joining us. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to advertise items 5A through H and J through Q, because you want to take out I. Yeah. Okay. If there's no further discussion, Ms. Carrillo?
Malinowski,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Our next item on our agenda is items for discussion / action. 6A is the review of the comprehensive council rules found on pages 11 through 17. We have our attorney here as well as our deputy attorney that's here with us. We had some detailed conversation in our last meeting, but I'm hoping that we will be able to take a closer look and a deeper dive to be able to make another recommendation back to full council. So at this time, Mr. Wright, we'll turn it over to you.
Ready? What are your questions?
Okay, so with that, Ms. McLean, she went through all the items and pretty much gave us suggestions and verbiage. So I guess my question would be for this body is, with those recommendations, which ones or any do we want to include to move forward to full council as an amended version of our rules that was previously approved and sent to full council? And so I'm just noting that I don't know if the best mode is for us to do what we did last meeting and look at the suggestions. She's got suggested language, suggested new rule, that terminology, and we could just take it by each item. And the first item was the purpose and scope. She provides us with an updated version of how to say this in a cleaner way. So do we need to take, Mr. Wright, I'm wondering, do we have to take each one of these by a vote, or can we just, how should we proceed with accepting the language that's been provided?
It's up to the committee. They can do it individually by section, or they can just do it as a whole. It just depends on what you want to accept or not accept.
So I think for the sake of time, what we'll do is I will open the floor and we can look at the items that concern you the most, and then scale back from there.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
You recognize Ms. Mackey.
Thank you. Like to make a motion to accept the suggested language provided by Attorney McLean for item 1.3. And that's related to open meetings.
We're accepting her language. Are we also accepting the rule as well? Because underneath there it says suggested new rule.
No, my motion is strictly related to
Look at that
the
portion that says suggested
language.
I'll second that.
Yes, it's just that section.
Okay. I'll second that. Any discussion? You did? Oh, I didn't hear you. Sorry. Okay, so any discussion? Yes.
Chair Barron, I would like to ask for the record if we can state what the language is.
Sure. The suggested language provided by Attorney McLean for Rules 1.3, open meetings. All meetings of County Council shall be open to the public except as provided for in Section 30-4-10 of the South Carolina Code of Laws 1976 as amended. All regular and special call meetings of council will be broadcast live and recorded where practical. Public notice of regularly scheduled meetings, special call meetings, and committee meetings will be given in accordance with the South Carolina Code Section 30-40-80, notice of meetings of public bodies.
Further discussion. Ms. Carrillo.
Thank you, ma'am.
If you will, call for the vote.
Malinowski, Barron,
Yes?
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Ms. Mackey, you still have the floor.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion related to electronic participation. That's on page 12 of 23. Attorney McLean provided some language in red for us to consider. I would also like to suggest additional language for electronic participation. I will read it aloud. I've also emailed a copy to all council members because it's lengthy. Council members are expected to regularly attend meetings in person, but electronic participation may be permitted in circumstances with notification being made to the chair at least 24 hours prior to the meeting start time. Electronic participation, including participation via online platforms such as Zoom, WebEx, or similar medium is permitted in circumstances where a council member may not be present in council chambers or other council meeting location due to illness, public health crisis or emergencies, quarantine, government-imposed curfew or restrictions on movement, traffic or other delays or other causes that would reasonably be expected to impede or prevent a member of council from attending a council meeting in person. Any council members participating electronically may not participate in any executive session. Council members participating electronically may choose to abstain from a vote on the issue discussed in executive session. For the purpose of this section, electronic participation shall mean video conferencing or teleconferencing, which allows all persons participating in the meeting to hear each other at the same time, and in video conferencing to see each other as well. My motion is to use this language for electronic participation and replace the language that is currently there.
Question. Malinowski.
Yeah, I don't know when you sent that to us, but I was gone for the entire week and got back about noon today. So was catching up on things. So that's an awful lot for me to try to digest right now. I would, unless you think we're going to complete all this today, I'd ask that we defer that section to the next time. Of course, part of my reasoning for not having some of those points you made in there, I think are good, but if we have a public health crisis or curfews or quarantines, certainly we would go and revert back to these public meetings via some electronic participation. But when individuals run for this position, they know what the meetings are, and I believe they should be at the meetings. And I think when you start to say, well, if you're sick, I just think that tends to start opening an abusive system, because you know what? Tomorrow night is the quarterfinals in the NBA playoffs, and I'd really like to watch. I'm going to send to the chair and tell him I'm not feeling well today, and I don't think I will be tomorrow either. So I'm going to participate and just keep the volume down on my TV while I'm glancing back and forth from that to the Zoom people. I just believe that we all accepted these positions or knew that we were here to be here for the people we represent. When a person when these people come in, and it may not be that many, but for citizens' input and want to speak to something that we're voting on, or that we represent that individual on a zoning public hearing matter, for example, and we're not sitting in a chair, I think that looks very unprofessional and negative for the county. Just like when we say, well, we asked staff to get us something, but they didn't do it. Well, maybe they didn't have the time, and there's an excuse or a reason also. So that's one of the reasons I believe electronic participation should be very, very well guarded in how it's used. And it was Miss Newton last time said, I think, or what if you're on vacation? Well, you know when our meetings are, you get those every January, and if you want to schedule vacation, then take vacation. But I don't believe you should be given the opportunity to participate then. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but in 16 years, I've made every single council meeting here. I just, as I said, traveled back from Pennsylvania to West Virginia to North Carolina to get here today for this meeting. I've traveled from Pennsylvania all the way back here for an evening meeting and gone back the next day. So I think it's a matter of pride in whether a person wants to really be part of the team or not. If you're sick, okay, I'm sorry that you're sick, and it'd be nice if you could participate. But again, there's no guarantees that you really are, and this is where the abuse starts. Not that any of us aren't above abusing a system once it's put in place, including myself. That's all. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Malinowski. And I understand your points. And as you were talking, I thought about the first Tuesday in November. I will be out of town. I'm conducting business and will be out of town Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The business that I need to conduct is over at noon. However, I'm going to still be out of town, and I sure would like to be able to call in and at least be present virtually versus having my name a blank beside it. And I do think that whereas we may have to put some other systems in place, at the end of the day, we're all adults and we just have to trust what we have and the integrity of people, and should a person not do what's needed, the people speak. But I don't want to get into this whole, I don't know about the whole Big Brother, the television show with the Big Brother, everybody's looking down on them, trying to keep them straight, because truth of the matter is you could be in the building and not be here, Ms. Mackey, I recognize you. I'm sure you want to respond, but.
Thank you. I do appreciate your comments, Ms. Malinowski. You're right. You have served a long time and you've made every effort to be here. I have not served as long as you've served, but I have made every effort to be here, and I have not missed a meeting as well, nor do I intend to. And in my motion, I really took the time to spell out those things that talk about illness and emergencies, because, I came into office in a pandemic during COVID. And I think that has shifted how all of us operate now and have to be able to operate differently. You even look at our children, for example. When the hurricane came and then there was going to be bad weather and they had to close down schools, guess what? Both my kids came home with a laptop. They got online and they had to do asynchronous work. They still continued to participate and be engaged. And I think we do have to recognize that if one of our colleagues becomes sick, if they have COVID, and they can still participate, but not bring it here in council chambers and infect us, yes, I would love for them to participate. Their constituent would love to participate. And their constituent that is here, yes, I'm sure they would love to see them in person, but they would also be happy to know their constituent, that their representative is online listening. Even though they were sick, they still showed up and listened and participated in the meeting. And so for me, my main concern is making sure that we have every opportunity to still represent and serve. Not so much, I think, I understand where you're coming from. I think maybe you're looking at it from the negative side of abuse. I'm looking at it to make sure we have every opportunity and there's no barrier in the way for us to represent our constituents. Heaven forbid I do get sick, I still want to be able to log in and participate for my constituent and not have missed a key conversation when really I'm fine, I can talk, but I'm in quarantine and I want to be respectful of everyone else's health. So I do think there is a piece of that we do have to acknowledge where we are right now and where the world is, and somehow make room for that in all of us. And maybe if there is a compromise that can be made to how to limit that, but I don't want to just think that it's not possible at all, because then I feel like we're shutting some people out.
Mr. Malinowski.
Maggie, you think it would be possible, like I think it was our last meeting, Councilman Joe Walker participated on Zoom. He knew that he would not be able to vote, but still participated and was able to add any comments he wanted. That participating that way, when it's not a special called meeting, you can participate, but just.
What do you mean? He was only able to participate because it was a special called meeting though.
No. There was one that he recently said, I know I can't participate, but I'd still like to zoom in and be at the meeting.
Oh, the zoning public hearing where he just sat there? Is that what you're saying?
Ms.
I think
Carrillo?
that's what it was, wasn't it? The last meeting?
He did not participate. He listened to the meeting, so he was not allowed to actively participate or ask questions during that meeting, but he was allowed to hear or listen.
Right,
to
and I'm saying we allow the participation of asking questions as well, but when the vote comes, you just can't vote if you're not here present.
Well, that's not the intent of my motion. No.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Wright.
and I'm not sure if it's possible that I missed it, Ms. Mackey, but did you have in there as far as not being able to participate in executive session?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
just making sure.
And I emailed it to you as well, Attorney Wright, for your review. So
Did you
I'm
say?
happy to continue this discussion. It was
Hey,
today.
well,
Yes, sir.
So we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any?
Motion on the floor, not a second.
Did have a second. That's how we got the discussion.
Oh, Mr. Malan,
No? I seconded.
you seconded? Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that part. Okay.
So there is a motion and a second with the discussion.
Madam Clerk, could you just package to me, when you get the next package to me, please get a hard copy of that in there, of all that stuff she said, please. Thank you.
Absolutely, we'll get a printed copy
Alright.
to you.
So motion and second, we've already had plenty of discussion. Ms. Carrillo?
Malinowski,
No,
Barron,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
motion approved.
Okay, Ms. Mackey, you still have the floor.
Thank you. The next recommendation is 2.4. That's related to the censorship. Attorney McLean recommended removal of this rule. So I'd like to make a motion to accept Attorney McLean's recommendation and to remove Rule 2.4 censure.
Discussion. Carrillo?
Malinowski,
yes,
Barron,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
motion approved.
That is all I have for now. If anybody else wants to make any action on hers, but that is all I have for now.
Want to make sure you got yours covered.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Malinowski, you're recognized.
thank you. Let's go back to the beginning, please. The 1.1 purpose and scope. We're in there, it talks about that they're going to apply to everybody out there. And I know I made the comment last time that, well, some of these boards, committees, and commissions already have existing rules in place. And I think we need to find out which ones they are, so that if we're going to, and possibly create a list of the ones that come under this rule, or if it's shorter, the ones that do not come under this rule. And then we also need to look at all these boards, committees, commissions, and decide, do all of them really need to follow these rules? Like some of our boards, commissions, and committees, like the H&A tax ones, meet once or twice a year, and it's to review applications and make recommendations. I don't know if they need those or not. They need a lengthy set of rules. So I think we need to have some looking at the ones that have their own rules and the ones that should come under these rules.
Go ahead.
I just for clarification, so what you're talking about though, is that in the rules or was that part of the ordinances and committee descriptions, which is separate from this document is what I thought? Because I thought we approved some descriptions related to board commission, and then we reviewed the ordinances, we updated those and we approved those, and then we moved to the rules. So I think your edits would apply to those documents. But
I'm not following.
Okay. So, and I don't know if this is Madam Chair, if this is the clerk or attorney, right? But if someone could help recall, we previously went through an exercise where we pulled the ordinances that were established for all of the boards, not all, but for majority of the boards and commissions. We pulled those ordinances, we reviewed them. We then also pulled the current listing of all the boards and commissions that we have and updated those descriptions and recommendations. And then we passed that along to full council first. Those documents were then reviewed. We went through this list where we deleted other committees that had not been active. We cleaned up our ordinances, voted on it, and wrapped it up. And so my question is, in relation to Mr. Malinowski's change, it's valid, yes. My question is, does that apply to our rules, or is that a whole separate document? Because our boards and commissions have not been tied to these sets of rules. These are council rules. And so can I get clarification on that?
Right. Well, you're talking about the ordinance. So in the ordinance, what it does is there are a description of the particular board or commission that's established, and these are, but what it doesn't do is provide the rules like how do you conduct the meeting and things like that. Those aren't in there. But
it does provide the terms and how they serve.
Right.
Okay.
Right. All that is in there. I think generally how it goes is that all of the committees generally, unless they have, say, for example, the Planning Commission has its own set of bylaws and rules. If the committee doesn't have that, or commission or board doesn't have that, they generally operate under the same rules as council does. So, or Robert's rules. So generally council operates the same as Robert rules with the exception of what is provided in their rules. So any other board would operate under the same general rules as council's rules, like how you conduct votes and things like that. So that's how it is. The actual ordinance doesn't have all that in it. It actually provides like the makeup and description of the committee or board or commission, but it doesn't say, okay, this is how you must vote. And if it does, then you go by what's provided in the ordinance, not by what's in the council rules.
But the ordinance, depending on the committee, may include how often they meet, what their term is,
right,
when a person can roll off, what they do. And so some of the things that Mr. Malinowski was relating to, from my understanding, was not a part of the rules, of the council rules.
That's a part of the ordinance, which is law.
Yes.
So that the ordinance trumps the rules, but where there's a blank, they can use the council rules as a guide.
Madam Chair, I didn't know if you saw my hand. So after the committee, I would just love to be recognized.
And welcome, Ms. Newton. Did you?
Yeah, for example, the Transportation Penny Tax Committee, we appoint the majority of those people, but I think they've got a set of rules in place that they're supposed to follow. I don't know on CMRTA where we stand with how many are appointed.
How many are not?
Yeah, so we need to know which ones, because this stated where we appoint the majority. So we need to go back and figure out which ones we do appoint the majority to, and then see if we want to apply these rules. Like Attorney Wright said, the Planning Commission, they've got a set of rules in place already. That's the point I was just trying to make.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, there are certain ones that they have their own bylaws and rules, so they go by that. But the ones that don't, their guides are the council rules.
So just before Mr. Livingston and Ms. Newton, they wanted to address this as well. So what we're specifically looking at, I think Attorney McLean, you said that paragraph that's underneath there, that's what we originally stated, but you really summarized it for us in this one sentence. Is that the one that's being suggested?
We're on so 1.1, that the only thing I suggested was the one sentence is fine. I really don't care. I was trying to make it clear that the council rules would apply to any board, commission, whatever, that didn't have rules already, period. That if it says county council, it means any board or commission that does not have rules in place already. You would follow these. If it does have rules already, like the planning commission or big boards and commissions, that's fine. Everyone else would kind of use this as a guide, though. That was what I was going for there anyway.
Okay. And so which one is your recommendation? That the paragraph?
The paragraph in italics was my recommendation,
Okay.
but it can be tweaked anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear about the one that we were looking at, because I think that at the end of the day, we don't necessarily need to attach a list to this. I just think that what we need to note is that there are boards and commissions that have their rules. And if they have their rules, they abide by their rules. If they don't, then they go by ours. And I think that's really cut and dry for me. Mr. Livingston and then Ms. Newton.
My question just been answered.
Okay, Ms. Newton.
I feel bad asking this question, but I guess I understand everything that we have said or that I've heard, but looking at the words, it says the rules shall apply to all meetings of county council, including committee meetings, which a natural reading of that sentence, would make me think it applies to council committee meetings and that it doesn't apply to those other boards at all. So I guess I'm trying to figure out if we're inventing a problem to solve with this that wasn't intended to be addressed by this, which doesn't mean that we might not want to, I guess, dictate rules of some of those other boards, but nothing reading 1.1 the way it's written makes me presume or think that it would apply to CMRTA, for example, because it says county council, including committee meetings, which makes me think including committee meetings of county council and not outside organizations.
So I just want to point out that the suggestion, if you continue on in that same sentence with the suggestion that in italics, it says including committee meetings and to all boards and commissions for which county council appoints.
And I don't, what was just handed to me doesn't have those italics, so that's probably why. All right, withdrawn, thank you.
Mr. Malinowski.
Yes, and I think after hearing what Attorney McLean has said and what I'm asking for here, and Attorney Wright, where it says, and to all boards and commissions for which the county council appoints a majority of the members, and there are no rules in place. Can't we just add that a little bit? Then it's understood.
That's your amended motion.
That I would make a motion for approval of that italicized version with the addition of those words.
For 1.1,
For 1.1, yeah.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay.
Yes, do we need to read this in the record for the clerk? Mr. Malinowski? Yes, sir, it's your motion.
All right. 1.1, these rules shall apply to all meetings of county council, including committee meetings, and to all boards and commissions for which the county council appoints a majority of the members, and they have no rules in place. Where applicable, the term county council means not only the county council, but also any other board or commission in the county governed by these rules. These rules were adopted as guidelines to assist county council and county boards and commissions in conducting orderly and productive meetings Any deviation from or waiver of these rules shall not affect or void any action taken by county council or a county board or commission. Furthermore, such deviation or waiver does not convey any right or cause of action to third parties not otherwise imposed by law. Period.
Any further discussion? Ms. Carrillo, can you call the vote for 1.1?
Malinowski,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Mr. Malinowski, you still have the floor.
The agenda 1.7. It says the strict rules for time leave almost no room for dealing with real issues that may arise in the days following the deadlines. Sometimes maneuverability is best. And I believe, and then the comment was, this rule appears to contradict other time rules that require materials and items an entire week before the meeting. Does this 24-hour motion rule still apply? I gave it to Chairman Walker. I don't believe I have a copy here, but back in, did you see that, Ms. Carrillo? Was it in 2019 or maybe 2020, where this council passed a rule dealing with the time? And that's how we moved things back to get to the Thursday delivery of the packages. And that rule is in effect and was passed. And if we continued to make changes and amend agendas following that deadline, then we might as well just throw that rule out, because the purpose was so that we'd all get these and have enough time to review them and read them and not have to keep going back and reading more and looking at more. And it was in there, it gave reasons why you would be able to make an exception to that particular deadline. I don't have that in front of me now, but I just wanted to throw that comment out, that I think we need to go back and look at what was passed previously, and maybe we need to amend that if that's the case.
Ms. Mackey.
Thank you. You are right, Ms. Malinowski. I think we did agree on language. I think as we have put this into practice, I think there's still just has been some scheduling issues and just time factor and trying to get things done to make agenda. But I do have, I guess, some suggested language that I'd like to put out there to kind of help clear it up. So a motion is for 1.7 that the title of proposed agenda items should be delivered to the clerk's office no later than 9 a.m. the Tuesday prior to the scheduled council meeting and or before the scheduled Horizon meeting. My current language is where that's kind of missing, is we have the Horizon meeting, but depending on when meetings happens and the dates, it sometimes gets shifted. And so I think adding this language to say that no later than 9 a.m. the Tuesday morning prior to the scheduled council meeting and or before the scheduled Horizon meeting. Support documentation should be delivered to the clerk's office no later than the Wednesday prior to the council meeting at noon. That is not in there as well. So support documentation.
Okay, 9 a.m. Tuesday prior to the council meeting, but today's Tuesday, the council meeting's tonight. Maybe you need to say 1 week prior to the council meeting, because 9 a.m. this morning, of course, that wouldn't fill in according to the rules, but just so that it's.
Say it again.
Well, if you say 9 a.m. prior to the council meeting, well, 9 a.m. this morning is prior to this council meeting tonight. So I said maybe you need to say 9 a.m. 1 week prior to the council meeting.
Okay.
or the scheduled Horizon meeting, like you said. And what was the second part of that?
About support documentation for those agenda items should be delivered to the clerk's office no later than the Wednesday prior to the council meeting at noon. So that way they're getting into our packets in
Okay,
time.
and we're still keeping with all those rules that were passed. The
Yes.
staff said we can work with that.
Yes,
That's fine. Okay. So is that your motion?
that is.
Second.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I think the one thing is that dealing with the motions can be made 24 hours before. So that still doesn't put you in, you have to have the documentation for things to get on the agenda a week before, but then a council member can make a motion 24 hours before, which won't be on the agenda. So I guess that's kind of a time issue.
Well, I guess with a motion, it still just goes under the motion period, right? So it's not, am I saying that correctly? Or because it's not necessarily going to be on the actual agenda per se, like for action.
Right.
Okay.
It won't be.
Yes.
The only thing is, unless it's at least 24 hours before, there won't be any notice to the public about what's going to be on the agenda or be discussed in the meeting.
For a motion.
For a motion.
For a motion. But technically, a council member could actually at the meeting make a motion during the motion period. That was not, right? Because you could make a motion in the meeting for a motion period that the chair would then send somewhere that may not have been advertised, right?
Right. You
Okay.
can make a motion.
A motion.
You just can't really take action.
Correct.
Right.
You recognize.
Thank you, ma'am. Question, I think there are a couple of times where you actually could take action on a motion. So it's not normal. Normally those motions should be sent out, but it is allowed on the resolutions and things, especially. So just keep that in mind that you got the 24 hours in advance thing. And typically that's just words on a page, that somebody you're going to send somewhere else. But on occasion, you might be taking action on something, and it's probably just going to be a resolution, but that could come up.
Further discussion? Philip?
Malinowski, Barron,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Malinowski, you still have the floor. And before you go, just want to recognize our colleague, Ms. Teresa has joined us as well.
Okay, number 2.5, the points of order dash appeal and the items in 5.8 motions during debate. Attorney McLean indicated, well, we could have some cheat sheets, so to speak, where these different points are made. But if we do that, I can just see a whole lot of shuffling of cheat sheets trying to find out what's where. I realize some of this may be a duplicate of what is in the Roberts rules, but I think it's good to have them right out there in front of us in these rules. It's not taking that much extra up so that members can see what it is we're dealing with, what can and can't be done. And so that's why I said that if you've gotten used to kind of looking at these, it's a whole lot easier to look at these briefed points here rather than try and bring out the Roberts Rules book and look through that and have somebody waiting while you say, I remember I saw that somewhere in here. So that's why I would just recommend that 2.5 and 5.8 remain as they are for quick reference. 5.8, actually 5.8 through 5.12. Gives you a brief synopsis of the do's and don'ts, and you got it right there in front of you. So I'd make a motion to keep those in the rules.
I'll second it. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I guess, can I have Attorney McLean provide clarification? In her comment, she says that if we, the body, prefer to keep these in here that she suggests the model rules version. So I don't know what the model rules version looks like, but is that maybe comparable to what it is that Mr. Malinowski is saying he'd like to see, but is also more up to date? Or what is the model rules version?
I don't have the rules in front of me. I don't have the model rules in front of me, but I mean, they're similar. I thought they were just a little more straightforward. There's nothing wrong with this if you want to keep them in. I mean, I wouldn't say they're relatively clear. I didn't think they were necessary. I like the model rules better. And I like I said, don't have them in front of me, but I don't think it's going to cause you any huge problems if you leave it as is.
For clarification, is model rules the same as Robert rules, or is these a different set of rules?
Correct. Those are different set of rules. The model rules are a set of rules created by, I think, Association of Counties, or that is for local governments to look at and use as rules if they can. But it's not. I like their language, but they're not. It's just a suggested language.
I would ask, just out of curiosity, when you have a moment, can you just email me this said model rules that you're referring to?
Sure, they're on the Association Counties website. I'll shoot you a
Literally
link.
just model rules. That's what it's called.
My model rules for parliamentary procedure, I think it's called, or something like that. But I'll shoot you a link.
Thank you.
Mr. Malinowski.
That's what I was going to ask, if we can be sent a copy of the model rules you're referring to, and we can review them. And then in that case, I'd withdraw my motion and just maybe ask that we defer this one until we get to review those and bring it back here.
So I was just going to say, perhaps even leaving the language that we have and then refer to the model rules as another mode that's similar. I don't know if that's going to be confusing or not. But as long as we could refer to it, but I'm not opposed to waiting to get that. So, Mr. Mile, we're going to defer that item.
Yeah, we'll wait for Attorney McLean to get us those and defer it till we can review them and then discuss it at the next one.
You still have the floor, sir.
Under 5.18, after letter E, where it says comment, I find this summary very confusing. I suggest the below language. I mean, I understood the above language, but if anybody wants to make a motion to take the suggested language, that's fine with me. That's the last one on our sheet here.
Madam Chair, sorry, which number were you referring to, Mr. Malinowski? Sorry.
It is 5.18, voting for board and committee appointments. And it is A through E. Following E, there's a comment with suggested language right below it to replace all of that 5A through E, which is a lot shorter.
Thank you.
So I'd just say that anytime we can be concise in our communication, I'm for it. So whereas these points are not that confusing, I do like the language that was provided by legal. I'm not opposed, and that was one thing that one of the comments that I had was that I like the concise version. So, Mr. Malinowski, is that your motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we accept the suggested language for that item.
Second it. Discussion. No discussion? We're going to vote for 5.18 at this time. Ms. Carrillo.
Malinowski,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes?
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
That's all I saw, Madam Chair, as far as my comments.
We have, going through my notes. Okay, we've covered all of the recommendations as well as any additional recommendations that the committee has. Yes, sir.
There is one more, and we didn't really act on it, and it's under 4.1 standing committees. After letter C, there's all that redlined stuff. It's redlined, it's red type and redlined out. And the comment was, this doesn't seem like a place for this type of information. It seems more suited for the ordinance setting up the committee. So we really need to decide, are we taking that out based on the comment, or do we want to leave it in?
Well, I thought that this was something that we had already acted on in a previous rendition of this document.
Motion to remove the text under 4.1C, beginning with the vacancy on a county board commission or committee shall be announced at least 2 meetings prior to council meetings.
Second.
I didn't read the whole thing.
I was looking over here and reading. I thought we probably didn't act on it.
I know that's on Mike. So yeah, just
Yeah,
for,
I
to be
thought
sure.
that's why I didn't bring this one up, because I actually thought that when she said the red lines were from the previous rendition that we'd already voted on. So but we're safe. We'll be safe and take it and take it out formally. Any further discussion? Ms. Carrillo?
Malinowski,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes?
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay. With that, let me go back and look to make sure that we didn't skip anything else that was red line. Okay. So what we have completed making revisions to our rules. The only other thing that we need to do to address is the item 5.8. And we can take that up at our next meeting with the hopes that we can move this document forward to full council. Any other discussion on the rules? If not, our next order of business is 7A, 7 items for information, which is 7A for our boards, commissions, and committees on page 18, the schedule. And note the schedule there, and we do have one coming up, which we will send to full council tonight. And then the next item is 7B, which is the current applications that are on file on page 19 through 23. And that's for your information. Just note that the highlighted applicants have applied for more than one boards or commissions. If not, no further discussion. Item 8 is for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Again.
Carrillo?
Malinowski,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Yeah, Bill, I